few moments. But by way of introduction, I'd like you to reflect on a phrase that we probably have heard many times. It starts as follows: "There but for the grace of God go I." Many may have uttered that. What we don't necessarily know, that it was spoken by a reformist, John Bradford, in the 16th century, and it was with reference to a group of prisoners that were heading off to be executed. That, of course, has taken on new meaning to us, because sometimes we look at a situation and we also frame it, because the possible outcomes may have been worse than what we were in at that time. You may even have used the words, "there but," when you pass through an intersection and you see a beggar asking for food. You may have used that expression, "there but for the grace of God go I," when a friend of yours has lost their job or their employment. And we're still there but if we've lost somebody in death. Those are real challenges, but even in the workplace now, we find challenges that you as women, and please, I'm not being condescending toward any of the men that may have joined us, they just really have to fit in. But the roles that you play is that of mother, wife, daughter, counselor, boss, and a number of other roles. So the challenges that you face today are even more real. But what I would like to do is just introduce you to a saying that MasterDrive have, and that is, this is another MasterDrive adventure. While it's true that the definition of adventure may not be that in the strictest sense of the word that you can relate to, but Cambridge Dictionary defines it as following: unusual, exciting, and possibly dangerous. And I'm sure every one of you will agree with me that we are living in exciting times and they are dangerous. Franklin Roosevelt, who was the 32nd President of the United States, when he had his inaugural address, he used a phrase, and it is of interest that it was to a nation who were petrified. They were virtually paralyzed because of the economic paralysis that the country and the world was facing. He used the words, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." And then he went on to say, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear." So how have we at MasterDrive addressed this? Well, we started out right at the outset of the national disaster implementation by developing and providing free COVID-19 driver training for all our customers. We also prepared COVID readiness and preparedness kits that we would make available free of charge to companies that were opening, that were beset by the challenges that we face. And then, of course, a host of PPE equipment that not only went to equip our staff with the very best that was available, but where needed, make this available to clients as well. In addition to this, we supported various social initiatives, charity drives, one of which is, of course, the Solidarity Fund as created by the President. And I'm glad to let you know that since we opened on the 4th of May, and yes, we have been open since then, we have trained just over 1,000 candidates. It may sound like a lot, but that probably is what we would have done in the space of 1 month previously. And in addition, in the middle of it, we turned 21. So we've been around for 21 years delivering driver training, and I do think and believe that we happen to be the best at it at this time. Sadly though, during this time, COVID impacted directly on us as a team. One of our own team members unfortunately took their life. And whilst it wasn't directly related to COVID, we can only imagine that the challenges associated with dealing with the COVID pandemic were a factor in that. Do you recall the film in which Tom Hanks featured and starred, Cast Away? Some of the words that he spoke, or the character spoke, when he was sitting on the island, he said, "I know what I have to do now. I've got to keep breathing because tomorrow the sun will rise. Who knows what the tide could bring?" We don't know what tomorrow will bring, next month or next year. But what we do know is there's something that we can do about it right now. But you know what? We can quote words of Mandela, the sage advice of Gandhi, or the words of Martin Luther King, who said, "I have a dream." But at the end of it, they're just words. So how can we turn these words into action? Well, you will have noted we invited you to share a cup of coffee with us. And albeit that this is being done virtually at the moment, if you can put the slide up, Naz. This has been done virtually. The difference, or the main difference, is that while you and I may enjoy a cup of coffee at opposite ends, the value of this coffee, the cup of coffee, is being donated to a charitable cause. And this cause is the Door of Hope. Please have a look at this picture and see if not you can associate with the fact that we would like to support causes that are worthy. During lockdown, they continue to function, taking in new arrivals, but with less income being generated. So we would like to support that, and so please be aware of the fact that your coffee will go to a worthy cause. But why now would we be introducing something such as this? Please look at a survey that was done in the United States and in the UK, and notice the following figures. And just circle the 40%. Please note at the bottom, 40% of younger workers suspect that they suffer from anxiety and depression, but they haven't been diagnosed by a professional. Is that not of concern to us? The people that work with us and for us are faced with challenges. A colleague of mine shared some anecdotal evidence when he went to the pharmacist the other day. And when asking the pharmacist how business was, they indicated that while they had not seen any growth in medication requirements and treatment for flu symptoms, what they had seen is the following: a 400% increase in medication for depression, a 250% increase, if I have the number correctly, increase in medication for sleep. So we need this, and we need it now. And we don't pretend to have all the bases covered, folks. But what we have attempted to do is to give you the insight of 4 women who are dealing with the challenges and the advice that they can offer. But just before we go into the presentations, please note at the end, so there's the incentive for you to stay, we will be giving away some prizes to all who remain present. There will be a lucky draw. In addition, there will be a coaching session by Dr. Nell for those who will qualify. And I'd like you now to take note. The name of a book will be introduced during one of the presentations, and 10 of these will be available to those who send their name in through the chat. Once the name of the book is recognized, they will be able to put it down, and the first 10 will be given a prize. So, to the subject, psychological effects of COVID in the workplace. We will speak to how it impacts on the education of our children, the challenges associated with being a parent, what it's like to be at the coalface, and then, of course, right at the end, dealing with the challenges. So I would like to now introduce our first presenter, who is the Deputy Principal at Abbott College, Yumna. Look at her CV there, folks. She has a wealth of experience with regard to teaching, and we would love to hear from her what the challenges are in the subject that she addresses: can education wait? Yumna, over to you, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the lovely welcome. I just want to put my screen on quickly. I want to just start off by saying that when all of this happened, when COVID happened, everything in our everyday lives changed. What we were doing, what we were experiencing, everything changed. And people around there, people in the world looked for ways of adapting, of changing, of making life feel as normal as possible. You know, children couldn't see their grandparents. We looked for ways of innovating. We looked for ways of celebrating our birthdays, of being with our friends, being with our loved ones. And it's sort of become, for some people, the norm, that this is what life is like. This is how things are going to continue. And we need to just create a sense of normalcy for ourselves and for our families, because coping with that has become very difficult. One of the questions that came up with this is, though, what happens to school? And many people looked to the international examples, but internationally, the examples weren't always there, because many of the schools were at the end of their academic year. And in South Africa, we were faced with the challenge of, do we close our schools? Do we open our schools? When do we open? When do we close? And this led to that question of, can education wait? What happens when schools reopen? What do I as a parent, what do I as a mother do? And that was something that I want to look at today, in terms of how is all of this, how has COVID-19 affected our education system? How has it affected our kids? And what challenges are we facing right now because of that? And when all of this happened, we went back to changing our levels, and we said we're going to go back to school. And it was a big joke for many people. All the memes went around, parents out there, teachers were the it, our jobs were suddenly really appreciated. And parents started to realize the enormity of the challenge that they were faced with. We started seeing jokes like this one. Oh, if you see my kids outside, I've sent them on a field trip. And it was a challenge, because that's what we do. When we're struggling, we try to lighten the situation. We try to make it easier. And this was new territory for parents. For some, it was about working from home and having your kids at home and having to get resource packs from school and deal with the resource packs and have to juggle work and have to juggle school. For some parents, their kids were not receiving any work whatsoever from their schools. Others were gone online, and many parents sat there saying, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right decision? What's needed for my kids? And amongst all the other social and economic pressures that we had this challenge that we need to deal with as well. But what I want to say to the parents out there is that you're not alone in the struggle. Teachers have faced enormous challenges as well. For many, it feels like teachers sent their work home and said, become the parent's problem, but at the end of the day, learning, exploring are things that teachers could do within the classroom. And now having kids at home, sometimes being online, having a blank screen in front of you because kids don't want to turn on their camera, you can't see their reaction, you can't see their interaction. So as much as you as a parent have gone through these changes and have to change the way in which your life has been structured, your day has been structured, remember that you're not alone in that. It's a shared experience. If I look from my own personal experience at my school, over the period of the lockdown, teachers have been thrown into the deep end. They went from teaching in a physical classroom to having to prepare lessons online for students, and then now going back to school where some students are online and some students are physically in the classroom. So that's just something that I want you to remember and bear in mind, that you're not alone in the struggle. The other side of the schooling experience is there with you. And in most cases, I would like to believe that your child's school and the teachers are still there to support you, to help you. And all they have at the end of the day is your child's best interest. That then brings me to the idea that we're now in this situation. We've been 100 and something days into lockdown and schools have opened. Some parents have opted to send their children back to school. Some have continued with online or keeping their students at home. And the most important thing we need to remember now is, as a parent, what can you do to support your child? And as a teacher, as a mother, as a principal, the best advice that I can give is that get to know your child. What we've seen over the last few months is that whether the students are at home, working from home, getting resource packs, working online, or even going to school, we are sort of assuming that our kids are okay. We're saying, I watch my kid every day, they're logging in or they're going to class and they're doing the work, and learning and teaching is taking place. But many times we forget that the emotional trauma that everyone is going through right now is trickled down to our kids. And what we need to do is actually sit down and have that conversation with them. Don't just assume that they're coping. Those that are working online, there's some things we can do, or working from home. What we can do for them is to just ask them the questions. Are you coping? Are you managing? How can I get to support you? And when we meet our children at school for the first time, in the beginning of a new year, at the beginning of a student joining our school, one of the things we have to do is get to know our kids, what excites them, what fears do they have of the year. And my advice to parents would be, do this with your kids now, because in this environment, as a parent, you are a parent, you are also a teacher. You're there to help and support, and you've got to get to know them. You've got to find out, are they struggling, aren't they struggling? If they are working from home, these are some tips that we've developed for our students at Abbotts College in order to help them create a better working environment at home. So things like creating a workspace. And one of the things we've noticed is a bedroom isn't the same as a workspace. For many of my kids, and I teach high school students, for many of them, the idea is, let me sit on my bed with my laptop or with my books because it's more comfortable. But that's very distracting. Your bedroom is seen as your place to relax, your place to chill at the end of the day. So if possible, even your dining room table, if your house can allow it, if you have many kids at home, it can become a bit distracting, a bit difficult, but find a workspace. So this is my workspace and this is my relaxing space. The other thing is, encourage them to have their notes, their books ready. And this is particularly important for students who are doing online classes. Be prepared. If you were physically going into school every day, you would have these things set up for you. And you need to create that routine and that setup at home as well. Encourage them to follow their timetable, to attend class regularly. And one of the biggest things, especially with online, is don't assume that because your child is sitting in front of a computer, in front of a laptop, or with their phone, that they are doing the work. It can become very intrusive for some parents to go to their kid and say, oh, what are you doing? Are you doing your work? And I've seen parents doing this, sitting the entire day next to their child in front of the laptop, checking on what are they doing in each lesson. And although we may sometimes feel that this is your way of checking up on them, making sure that they're doing their work, for the kids, it can become very overwhelming. It can become very stressful. They're not used to having somebody hovering over their shoulder the whole day while they're working. So if you are doing that, perhaps take a step back and think, why am I doing this? What am I achieving by doing this? That also depends on your age of your child. So if you're looking at a high school child, I'm sure they'll find that you're hovering, you're being a helicopter. With the smaller grades, grade R, grade 1, grade 2, you may need this. Your child may need that sense of knowing that you are there and you're there to help them. The other thing is to set a healthy routine. So what we found so far is that many kids are skipping meals because they're at home. And we know the minute you don't have that cup of coffee in the morning, your whole day is thrown out. When we physically attending school, students would have their breakfast, they would have their lunch, and they'd have their snack time and their routine time. So just try to ensure that that is maintained. Even if you're not at home, your child is at home and you're at home, something as simple as a phone call during lunchtime to say, did you remember to eat something? I left this for you, take a break. Just remind them that you are there and you are checking. And then also the focus. What we're finding these days is that a lot of students who are going to school and working from home have started to lose focus. And this is mainly in the higher grades, going up from your grade 10, 11, and 12, that students feel it's lost. The academic year is lost, it's hopeless, and they're now losing focus. So speak to your kids, see how you can help them, support them in terms of just creating that routine. The other thing for me is, if your child is getting up every day and going to school, you're comfortable with the routine that the school has set, with the safety procedures, and your child may be that type of learner that needs the classroom, that thrives for that interaction with their teacher. Remember that, like us, they are facing these challenges, especially if you have a child that is in matric. Many of our matrics have expressed that everyone's so worried about the economy, about life, about not having to go out, not being able to meet with their friends. these are challenges that our students are facing as well. The uncertainty of this academic year that they are facing. Are they going to write the matric exams? What happens if they are COVID positive while they need to be at school? What happens if they're not feeling well? You know, these are things that they are really, really struggling with. And at school, we try to assist students, but obviously I can't speak for every school. So speak to your kids, ask them, how are they dealing? How are they managing with the stress? They miss their friends like crazy. Being at school and socially distancing and wearing a mask is not the same as normal school. You know, you're on your toes all the time. The kids are worried. Teachers are on their case. Are you socially distancing? Do you have your mask on? So just bear in mind that even if they are going to school and they are engaging with their friends and their teachers, it's still very emotionally taxing on them. And the last part with regards to supporting your kids at home would be the idea of this concept of homework versus homework. Especially if students are working from home, there's a very difficult challenge for them to separate work that my teacher has given me and explained to me and now expected me to practice, which typically would be your homework. I'd go home and I'd complete these activities, but then everything is being done at home. So how do you classify homework versus work that you're doing every day at home? And it's about balance. At the end of the day, we are putting so much of pressure on them to complete this academic year, to do the work that is needed, and to pass at the end of the year. So keep that in mind. Just if you're doing things, take a step back, think about what can I do to get to know my kid a little bit more, to ask them about these challenges. Many of our students have kept quiet, especially in households where there are financial strains due to COVID-19. They don't want to burden their parents. They don't want to put additional stress on them. So they're keeping quiet about these challenges that they are facing. Irrespective of what decision you made about your child's schooling, whether you chose to send them back to school, whether you've kept them at home because you have concerns regarding COVID-19, or you have yourself a comorbidity or an elderly family member at home whose health you are worried about, there's no point in standing now and looking at yourself and saying, did I make the right decision for my child? At the time where we had to make a decision to send our kids back to school or not send them back to school, you made the right decision for yourself at that time. And me as a parent as well, I'm a mom of a 6-year-old girl. And in this week, I have to make a decision about whether I will send her back to school in mid-August when her grades return, or do I postpone that return to school? And it's such a difficult decision. But what you've got to take into account is your child, your situation, your health situation, and see what is going to be best for you. For me as a working mom, if I'm not at home, the level of work that she's doing is not the type of work that I know would motivate her, would keep her going. So I've got to take the necessary steps that are needed for her to go to school. I've got to sit down, educate her, remind her why she's wearing a mask, why there's a need to sanitize, etc. So if you're sitting in a situation now where you realize, I didn't send my child to school, or I made the decision to work online and maybe it wasn't the best decision, the best thing for you to do now is to look at the resources you have available to yourself. Do I have my school there that I can reach out to, teachers who would help me to fill the gap? Maybe your child was sick, maybe you were sick and your child missed out on some work. How can I reach out to my school? Do I have family members within my, or community members who I can reach out to who are in the education field and can provide me with resources, provide me with things to help my child? And the last point is the internet. The amount of information out there and resources out there right now is unbelievable. And two of the most easy to access and free resources that I found out there that I've been using quite a bit would be Khan Academy. Khan Academy is based overseas and they provide support for students, teachers, as well as parents. And what you can do with this resource is that it doesn't just provide your kids with information and say, this is what you need to do in this subject, this is what you need to read. It also helps them to track their knowledge. So they can do mini assessments which are marked online, and then guides them to additional resources to support them. And the other resource, which is also free, is your Vodacom eSchool. And this has resources from grade R right up until grade 1. And if you're a Vodacom customer, I believe that it doesn't use any data to use the app. So you can download it on a phone, you can download it on a computer. And the lessons that they provide, the support that they provide to students is unbelievable. So there's PowerPoints, there's videos, there's mini quizzes that students can use and rely on after that. So if you're in that situation, that would be my best advice to you. No point in sitting there and thinking of the what ifs and how do I do it. Let's move forward. Let's look at what resources are available. Can I reach out to my school? Can I reach out to family members? Otherwise, let's go onto the internet and see what is available out there. And at the end of the day, it's all a balancing act. It's every day things are changing. From a school's perspective, schools open, schools close as our infection rates go up and down. This creates fear for our teachers, parents, students. And if your child is at a school where this is happening, where they're constantly closing for those 1 or 2 days because of the infections, ask those questions. Is it somebody you know? Is it a friend of yours? Is it a classmate of yours? And how is that making you feel? It's not always easy. We have to balance work. We have to balance our own struggles. But just remember that those kids out there need support. And where you can, reach out to your school. Many of the schools are being very accommodating and supporting in terms of helping students who can't access work. Okay. I believe we have a session at the end for any questions. So any questions that you may have, we can ask them.
Yumna, thank you very much. I found that enlightening, certainly. I don't have the challenges of dealing with children, but I really do admire teachers who are able to deal with the challenges that they face normally and then in conjunction with COVID. Next up, we are going to be listening to Pertunia. Pertunia, can we have her CV up there, please? Okay, so we've got Pertunia up. Before we hand over the platform to Pertunia, just a little bit of background. I've been working with Pertunia on and off for the past few years. We both have a passion for road safety, and we've shared on a board, Wheelwell, where we've been able to influence the use of persons restraints for children, and I trust that we've had some positive influence over there. So Pertunia, before she hands over, has asked us to let you know that there is going to be a poll that we're going to be launching now. You'll be able to access it online on the screen. There it is in front of you. And basically what it's asking you, who has the perfect work-life balance pre-COVID? Yes or no? Please, will you do that? We're going to give you 30 seconds to put your answers in, because Pertunia needs it in her discussion that is going to follow thereafter. So Pertunia, let me hand over to you, and you can do the necessary while you wait for those results. Pertunia, please.
Thank you so much, Eugene, for that warm welcome, and thank you for having me as a panel of the speakers. I just want to put up my presentation in the meantime. Nishana, can you please give me the rights to share my screen?
Pertunia, do you have access?
There you go. Can you see my screen?
No, not yet. Nazrin, can I suggest you open that voting again for that, because it showed that There's only a limited amount that voted. So my suggestion is let's start it from scratch again, launch the poll again, and then please note, guys, as soon as you see it, will you please register your vote? Okay, there, the polling has ended. And Nazrin, you can give the results to Pertunia.
Pertunia, do you have the results?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Not as yet.
Stop share results. Can you see now?
No.
Pertunia, would you like me to open your presentation and do it from my side?
Yeah, that will be fine. Thank you.
Okay, just give me 1 second, please.
I'm not seeing any presentation yet, Naz. There we are. We started streams. There we are. Okay, Pertunia, I've got you on screen, so go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's interesting, Eugene. Last year, with the woman in transport, McFarlane introduced me and said, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a psychologist on stage. So I must say today, I feel very much part of the clique with having Dr. Helena as part of the panel. So right at the start of my career, it has always been an imperative for me to always strike a balance between the people and the things that are important to me and obviously my work. And I've also been very privileged with having a mentor, leadership and strategy guru, Tony Frost, who has said to me, I don't only want to mentor you as a CEO, but also as a mother, as a daughter, partner, and whatever other role I play in society, therefore enhancing the importance of striking that balance. Next slide, please. So today, I want to share with you not the challenges, but the excitements of being a working mom, and why it is important to have that balance between your physical and emotional well-being, and what is it that it takes to be a mother, and also the newly acquainted role of becoming a teacher as well. Next slide. So you would have seen on the poll, 81% of you said no, you don't have a perfect work-life balance. Because I would love to get some insight on the 20%. Maybe you can share that magic wand you have with us. Next slide, please. as you can see, there is life before work. There is no work before life. And really life is about your family, your mental well-being, the financial status, your professional life, as well as the physical. And for me, it's about having the resilience of knowing where am I at this point, and what coping mechanisms do I have as a mother, and always also managing the demanding role of heading up a used car franchise, because I must tell you, it does come with a lot of excitement as well. Next slide, please. I think like many of you, I really miss what I now call my socially distanced life. I used to love playing my netball, dancing, traveling, playing golf. And also last year, with being a mom, working, I also had to endure the studies of GIPS, attending at least a week, once a month. So this is now what I call my socially distanced life. Next slide, please. So for me now, being a mother and a teacher, you know, the fear and anxiety that COVID has brought into our midst, it really resonates with how my son feels about COVID as well. The other day he was Googling about COVID being airborne. And I think the biggest challenge for me was I'm working from home and I have to release my son to go to school. That was very tough for me. But if I look at the emotional wellness checklist, it was important for me to be positive and also be mindful in terms of how, as a family, we address the fears that we are having. I think for starters, working from home and my son being at home, it means now we get to spend more time together. I don't have to be stuck in traffic. And for the first time, you know, he's been begging me to play Monopoly with him. And I must say, I've played Monopoly too many times during this time together. And I also want to touch on the point number 4 about gratitude, being thankful. I think, as Eugene mentioned earlier, we have to be thankful firstly about life. Sadly, many of our friends and families have lost their lives during this time, and some continue to do so. So we must be very thankful for having life. Secondly, also be thankful that, you know, many of us in this call, we are currently employed. Personally, I'm very grateful to being part of the First Rand Group and being part of West Bank. You know, our employer is promoting the well-being of employees. There's a lot of employee assistance programs with iCares for counseling for employees and your families as well. There's a lot of Q&As that have been done with doctors, you know, for us to ask the layman questions about this whole thing about COVID. Lots of information that you can access even on your FNB app. And most recently for me, which I feel is quite a good thing, there's what First Rand has got called Ubuntu beds. It's basically paid for accommodation and meals for employees that need to isolate or self-quarantine for the 14 days. I think that really alleviates the pressure. And then lastly, I think what I want to touch on is around the routines. Next slide, please. So as you may well know, it's good to have a schedule. But if you don't have boundaries that you respect and let the people around you respect those boundaries, you lead to burnout, strained relationships, and also reduce work productivity, etc. It is very important to be healthy. A healthy body equates to a healthy mind. Now, you know, if you've always lived a healthy life, there's a lot of information, drinks this vitamin C, D's, and all of that. You know, my son and I have been on vitamins for the longest of time. So we actually carrying on our healthy routine, eating our fruits and veggies, drinking water, getting some sun and sleep. Also, touched on as well that you need to have a work schedule and a workspace, and also check in with your team and colleagues, and use the tools that are provided by a company. We've got an interesting tool that's called Productive Me. So it really works around your Outlook calendar. And if anybody sends you an email, you get to know what action is required from you, what pre-read is required before a meeting. So that's really, you know, something that lets you manage your work schedule importantly. Also, the housework. I'm not a very big fan of housework. I'm very fortunate that we've got a live-in nanny, but when she went away, I had to juggle between work, doing my son's homework, and also the shopping routine, because you don't just, you know, go to the shops now. You have to plan it, and also mostly work on the online. And it's also important to enhance your personal development during this time. There's quite a lot of e-learning networks that one belongs in, to really, you know, zoom out of your work and just focus on yourself around the personal development. And also the family support is very important, and checking in with friends and family. We actually have, as you can see in the middle of the image, the mature lady is I've put in there because we don't know when COVID would end, whether it will ever end. So I think it is best for us to actually make sure what we have in our control, how we respond to it, and make the best of it for ourselves, for our families, and our colleagues, because we don't know. So it is important to make the best out of the situation within our control. Next slide, please. So on this picture, you see my mom and dad. Yes, my dad was a dancer and I was daddy's little girl. And on the left, we had our 2 weeks last holiday before my father passed away. Next slide, please. So I want to share with you my journey that I've had on grief. So I joined West Bank on the 6th of February in 2017. And on the 8th of February, unfortunately, I lost my dad. I lost my everything. He was involved in a car accident and was hospitalized for a week and passed away. And I neglected the time to grieve. I was in denial, I was angry, and most definitely depressed. So that bear lying on the couch, that was me. I was stuck between those stages. And then about a year and a half later, my mom passed away a day after Mother's Day, 5 days before her birthday. As you can imagine, my parents have been married for over 40 years, 45 or 48. So she couldn't cope having lost her life partner as well, that she was married to. Then one day I had a meeting with Rena's Leroux, and he looked at my WhatsApp profile pic, which you can see on this image, which I still have. And he actually said to me, I hope you don't mind, but I brought you a copy of one of my books. The book is called Sculpted by Grief. Please take note of that. And for me, there's key takeouts that I have on the book. Firstly, it was about understanding grief. I didn't know the hell what was going on with me. I was operating on autopilot. And I got to learn and understand about the stages of grief and how to manage those. And also, as you can imagine, there are triggers: Christmas, Father's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays, songs. My dad and I shared the passion of sports cars, and he's got this growling machine of a Mercedes-Benz AMG. And it's really the one thing that connects me to my late father. So now I'm better equipped to deal with the triggers when those things happen. And also, you know, don't expect people to understand your grief. I know maybe that's a tough one to take in. They've got their own lives to live. And with that said, one needs to take care of yourself and manage the condolences. And now I'm not sure if you can see my camera, but I've also started writing a journal, which my therapist recommended in June 2020. So in June, I lost both my aunt and uncle. Both were not due to COVID, but they were very close to me. So writing a journal has really, it allows me to write my thoughts and actions, and also to understand my emotions better. Because if I've got an understanding of myself, I'm able to be better at work, to be a good parent, to be good in society, etc. Next slide, please. And now, I must say that I'm a proud mom of my mini pillar, Akumzi. He's my 9-year-old son. He's a current SA hip-hop champion. He represented South Africa in Turkey about 2 years ago. And really, you know, the bond that me and him share, he just joined me now. I don't know if you can see him. You know, makes me proud to be a mom. And as such, you know, that is why it is important for me to have that mental well-being, to be able to support him, my family, and also to be the best that I can be in my role as a working mom. As you can imagine, I work in a very male-dominated environment. I have to be competent, and I must say my competence you know, builds my confidence and allows me to work. And just the last slide, the message that I want to leave with you today. So never give up on someone with mental illness. When the I is replaced by we, illness becomes wellness. Thank you very much. And I'll also take questions at the end of the other presentations.
Pertunia, thank you very much. While we're getting back to the main screen, it's a touching experience, and I'm sure that everyone in the audience and others can appreciate the challenges of balancing the position that you hold, which is senior, and particularly in a male-dominated world. So thank you very much for sharing that. I was also interested in the poll because, and I can't tell you who shared this quote with me a while ago, says if anybody says that they've got the perfect work-life balance, they're not working hard enough. And that would appear to be vindicated by the poll that you do, and in times like we're living in, even more so. We're now going to get ready to go on to our third presentation. If we can have Rene's CV on the screen there, please, Nazrin. Rene's presentation is going to be on the theme, work-life integration, busting the myth of balance. Rene and I have known each other for a number of years, and again, we have a common interest, road safety. She, of course, is at the receiving end of treating individuals who are involved in crashes. We're on the side where we try and prevent people from being there. So, Rene, thank you very much for joining us, and we'd like to hand the podium to you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Jean and MasterDrive team for inviting me. I just want to get my screen up. There we go. Eugene, can everybody see my
Yes,
screen?
I can see, no problem.
Okay. So once again, thank you very much. True, like Eugene said, I'm on the receiving end, working in the trauma world, specifically with the Netcare hospital group, but currently the daily commander in our national COVID-19 JOC. And I think I can relate so much to a lot what Pertunia also said in setting the boundaries on working. So I just want to set the scene quickly, and that is, the question is COVID real? I still have friends that believe in all this. It was a conspiracy theory. It was created in a lab. It was created by a rat, by a bat, whatever you've heard. My opinion is, I don't care where it came from. It's here. It's a reality. And working with it on a daily basis, getting phone call after phone call of another death and another death, it is a reality. And we are in it. South Africa is doing, looks like we're doing better. But I just want to stop any myth. If you're still one of the groups, please come and speak to me, and I can show you the reality on the ground, that it is there. That I'm a mom and I have my own kids, true, and sometimes that create a lot of anxiety with me from a clinical point of view. Am I doing enough to protect my family? So I touched on it. I'm a mother too, although I work in trauma and run around in ambulances and helicopters. I am a mother, and very fortunate, so I'm blessed to have 3 kids in my life. So, but behind the mask that we are wearing, there is many roles that we have. And I think we as women, in my view, are the masters in doing different roles, and we can flip between different roles in a split second of being a superwoman. Many of us are now breadwinners due to job losses and job insecurities. We are nurturers. We are the cheerleaders. But I think you are a very good cheerleader. If I look at your son, we're sometimes the boss. We are the innovator to have a dinner ready in a split second when everybody is tired and hungry. We need to be the role model, the trendsetter, team player. We need to be the mentor, judge and jury, counselor, therapist, wife or partner, sport and music coach, and I think even more so now during schools being closed, cook, mechanic, magician, and then mom. And we're walking behind and past women in the stores with a mask, and we forget sometimes about the real face and the real story behind the mask, and that we are all facing battles within this COVID lockdown and COVID pandemic that we are facing. And I can just say for myself, being a mom at home, coming to work, dealing with death upon death, and then arrive home, and you need to fulfill this multitude of a basket of roles, can sometimes for me as a woman be very challenging. I'm fortunate in a way that my daughter, who's turning 21 this year, is an intern and working with me in the Joint Operations Center, which is very good because we can spend time together now, but I can also see the impact of COVID-19 that it has on her on an emotional level. These are pictures that I got from the 1918 Spanish flu. And those are women just like us, mothers just like us, trying to protect their family. And I think a lot, we can see what we're dealing now with the masks. Thank goodness we don't have to walk around with plastic bags over our heads like the top picture. But in everything they did, I think that the biggest focus to them, as for us, is the protection of our family. And keeping life going, still go out, still take the kids for a stroll, still go to school, and just keep that balance going. These are just a few of my colleagues working with me in the front line and at different nursing levels. And I have to tell you, after every mask that you can see here, there's a woman, there's a wife, there's a mother, a friend, and somebody that's very dear to me that is facing this battle. Some of them has lost loved ones in the process. Some of them had to have the, you know, I call it an honor of taking care of a very sick patient in the COVID environment. But after that, you know, again, it comes back to me and that face behind the mask, and that we should not forget, despite the different masks that we're wearing, be it a fancy flowery one or normal blue surgical one, that there is somebody behind that mask. So I'm just going to touch on a few questions on COVID, bringing COVID back in again that I've been asked by my friends on COVID, and you've all hear this. Our president is saying it, the Department of Health, everywhere you go, about wearing a mask, clean your hands, keep it safe, keep it at a distance, and I think that is all well known by all of us. The one question, and that's a personal thing to me, is about people wearing gloves. Please don't wear gloves. The virus stays on the glove for quite a long time, and you're actually spreading the virus by wearing gloves, trying to think that you protect yourself, but you're spreading the virus because you don't do hand hygiene as you should. So unless you take care of somebody that is ill or you're cleaning areas in your house, there's really no need to wear gloves if you do proper hand hygiene. So do I have COVID? I think, you know, for me, I said to my one colleague sitting next to me, I know you sneeze once a day. The moment that you sneeze twice, I'm going to be concerned. And that was just in a light-hearted, joking way. But we all know our bodies, and we all know when flu symptoms start. And please don't ignore it. Look out for the symptoms, be cautious for the symptoms, and pick it up early in the flow of the disease. There's a lot of questions going on when should I go for testing? Should I go for testing? I had a contact with a positive case, or maybe I had contact with a positive case. So for us, if there's a few questions that we ask, as long as you wear your mask and you do hand hygiene, you should be safe, and we see you then as a low risk exposure. But if you have not been wearing your mask as you should with a colleague, you've been closer to 1.5 meter, and spent more than 15 minutes with a colleague drinking coffee next to you, yes, then you pose a much higher risk. And we go according to these very nice guidelines on the WHO guiding us in identifying low risks. Underlying conditions that's definitely a concern for us and that we're picking up is hypertension, diabetes, patients that are obese, sorry, my tongue had a twist there, obese, patients on chronic renal treatment are really also in our high alert area. And then specifically to the mothers out there, we do see that our pregnant women are at a lot higher risk. We don't know yet why. There's a lot of studies going on. But if you are pregnant, please take care of yourself. And if you can isolate yourself at home for as long as you can, to just protect yourself. Self-isolation versus self-quarantine, I just want to touch on that. So if you have any symptoms, please, without being diagnosed yet, please stay at home, self-quarantine yourself, try to limit contact with your other family members, wear a mask. But in the event that you need to go and see a doctor, please go out and consult with a doctor, or we do telemedicine nowadays, have a phone call with your doctor and discuss it. And for some of us, unfortunately, hospital admission is going to happen. The reality is there that the hospitals are really struggling with bed availability at the moment. The patients stay for a much longer time. But I can say, and here I can really speak on what I know has been happening throughout all the hospital groups, not only Netcare, is that we are all very well prepared in dealing with both positive patients as well as patients under investigation, that we have processes, and we call it zones in place, where these patients will be admitted. I think for us as a family, and I had a couple of friends already with family members in the hospital, the difficult part is not being able to visit your family member. And I really want to urge you, I know it's very difficult and it's very hard not to visit them, but it's really a matter of staying away is protecting them and protecting yourself. And then de-isolation is when can you go back. The rule usually, and it's also depending on case by case, that is 14 days after you develop your symptoms or 14 days after you've been tested positive, you can de-isolate and you're not spreading the disease anymore. So I got this sent to me actually by my husband in view of Women's Day, and I think it was so appropriate to share it with you. And I'm just going to read it out quickly, or not a poem, it's nice words. Speak kindly to your inner self. Don't take your demon's view. You are you, and no one else will lead the life you do. Kill that inner critic and silence all his chatter. Then write this truth inside your brain. I'm worth it, and I matter. And I think every woman behind every mask we see is worth it and does matter. Really, self-care, I think we spoke a lot about it this morning, is so important. I started something that I never thought I would, and that is painting my house. And I can promise you, I really do feel that I'm not 18 anymore when I'm done painting in the afternoon and my shoulders are painful. But it's really good for my head and for my soul. And with that, I really want to thank you for the opportunity. I hope I shared some information with somebody that can find it valuable. And the last thing that I want to say is, amongst all of this, I've been reading Anne Frank's book on her experience during the Second World War. And she said something very powerful just a few days before she was captured and taken to the concentration camps. And she spoke about, when will I go back to school and when will this all be normal again? And then she said, think of all the beauty still left around you and be happy. And I think that is such a powerful thing, that there are still a lot of beauty around us, and we can still be happy within all of it, or everything happening around COVID. So thank you very much for your time.
Rene, thank you very much. We've had many years working together, and I trust that there will be several more years in which we can share your wisdom with the people that we engage with. I would like us now to put up the CV for Helena Nell, doctor. She's a psychologist. I must admit, whenever I'm speaking in front of psychologists, I kind of wonder what they're reading into what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. So anybody who's been on here before, please expect a call from Helena. She may be telling you about your inner psyche. But what is important before I hand over to her, and she's speaking on the subject, the psychological effects of COVID in the workplace. Many people are okay with their physical health, but their mental health is a major issue. And we've seen that in our organization. We've taken care of the physical. We send our trainers out. They get regular vitamin B shots. We keep them. If there's flu vaccines, vitamin C. So we do our very level best, but we still have challenges, and particularly those who are working from home. So we look forward to your discussion, and please note, if you've got any questions, please send them through in the chat group. We're going to try and cover them, but what the team in the back room will do is select the most poignant and most common ones, and then we will address that to the speakers. Helena, over to you.
Thank you so much. Can everyone see my screen? You can see it. Okay.
Just put it onto slideshow, please, Helena.
Yes. There we go. Okay, can everyone see? Okay. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, Eugene. As Eugene mentioned, my name is Helena, and I am an industrial psychologist. I have my own practice, and work-life integration for me was a good topic to share with you with regards to the psychological effects of COVID, I think we're all feeling it. We're all feeling perhaps more anxious than normal. We all feel perhaps like we're not as in control as we normally feel. But I want to share this principle with you, especially with us, most of us, or let's say some of us at least, working from home, and how we can really integrate our work with our life for better coping, and just in general keep these principles in mind as you're also reintegrating into your normal routine, hopefully soon, but we'll see. So today we're going to bust the myth of work-life balance, and I'll get to more detail in a while. So the first principle that I'd like to share with you is I speak to a lot of people about work-life balance, and I ask them, what is work-life balance to you? What does it mean? And people will say to me, it's keeping work and family separated. So as you can see in the illustration on the screen, I've put there for you a solid line with a no entry sign. So early research showed that if you could separate your work life from your family life, you would be okay. Okay, so technically then you would have a good work-life balance. And I think that's how a lot of us still view it today. Later on, of course, researchers saw that actually it's nearly impossible to keep things spilling over from work to family and from family to work. And in the beginning, they thought that actually the spill over from work to family and family to work was only a negative thing. So it was only negative spillover. Later on, of course, they saw that actually you get something as work-family enrichment or family-to-work enrichment. In other words, skills or concepts that you learn in your work life or tools that you have in your work life can actually enrich your family life, and things that you learn in your family life can actually enrich your work life. For example, a flexible policy at your work can actually enrich your family life because it allows you to spend more time with your family, to keep their needs into account, all of that. And things like having healthy communication skills with your family can spill over to work, in that you are a better communicator with people that you work with. So, of course, we know that this definition of work-life balance has evolved through the years. So if we think of this principle of work-life balance, in other words, if I can just separate work from family, I'll be okay. A typical day would look something like this, where the blue line represents your time spent with family and the orange line, time spent at work. Now, keep in mind, I'm speaking about a mindset here. So in my mind, I might think that, okay, in the mornings and in the evenings, those are the typical times that I will spend with my family. So in other words, those are the times that I mustn't be working. And during the day, of course, is time when we work. Now, we, of course, know that this is nearly impossible. So I've just added a few interruptions. So we can see that it's very difficult to just focus on work or just focus on family. Add to that mix elder care, which a lot of us might be experiencing. Add to that mix children. Add to the mix an always-on culture, where we are expected to be constantly available and where responsiveness is praised. And add to the mix our own need for our own psychological, spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being that we also need to spend time cultivating. This becomes a difficult mix. So I want to know from you, and please type in the comments, how do you feel when you don't get work-life balance right? So Pertunia did a poll for us, and very interesting that most of us actually feel like we're not getting it right. So I've added some examples of emotions here. If we can't get it right, we might feel like we're not in control. We might feel anxious, irritable, isolated, misunderstood, angry, misused. It might lead to burnout. And of course, this whole principle that if I manage to separate work from life, that's the ideal goal. Actually, what I want to tell you today is that it inevitably sets us up for failure. Okay, let's quickly go to the chat and see. Frustration, anxious. it's a goal, but I really feel inefficient and not strong, stressed, irritated. Okay, so a lot of negative emotions that we're dealing with. Throw into that mix that we're sitting with a COVID situation now, where we also feel that there's a lot of stuff that is not within our control. If you want to add stickers to the screen, I see someone drew something. You're more than welcome to put stickers where you feel like you're relating to what I'm saying. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we must change our mindset about work-life balance so that we're not setting ourselves up for failure from the start. So we need to change our thinking behind what is healthy work-life balance. Of course, we also know that specifically for women, this is a burden that we tend to carry in a bit of a different way than with men, because there's a definite expectation and a cultural norm that women should be the ones that take care of the family, that spend more time at home. And of course, we know, as the speakers mentioned earlier, that unfortunately women also need to work, and we want to work. We want to have healthy careers, but we also want, of course, a nice, healthy family life. So there must be a better way. So what I want to introduce to you today, if I can just go to the next slide, and I want to invite you today to change your mindset with me. So for a moment, let's forget about the term work-life balance, and let's rather focus on the term work-life integration. So the first step here is to think about what does it mean to integrate rather than balance. Remember, we said with work-life balance, all of my energy, my physical, my emotional energy, I spend on separating work from home. But we know that it's inevitable that they will clash. So if we focus on integration and change our thinking about what really works, if we focus on integrating, it means that we can schedule and organize our life and our work to work together more seamlessly. So we're integrating the two. We realize and we plan for and we're okay with we allow ourselves to really adapt to our own circumstances. So the first thing that's important is, what does success look like for you? Let's redefine success. Success in the work-life balance sense would typically mean, if I can separate work from life, I am successful. Okay. But look at some other definitions of success if you think of work-life integration. The first example, and remember these are examples, your definition might look a lot different. The first example is, I have enough emotional energy at the end of my day to give to my family. Can you see how a goal like that might mean that you leave work earlier? You still take home perhaps some admin work or some things that you didn't get time for. But if you change your ideal of success, if you leave home earlier, spend some time with your family when you're still at your best, then you'll be more okay to work in the evening. And then even though you're taking work home, your definition of success sets you up for success. So the second one is, I have space to practice hobbies and exercise during the week. So for this person, most likely, it's important to live during the week a life that makes them feel fulfilled, and not only live for the weekend, because I think that's something that a lot of us do. We think that weekends promise fulfillment and purpose and makes us feel alive. Well, actually, what if we start integrating our work with our life so that our week actually brings us that fulfillment that we so desperately need? The last one is, I have uninterrupted times to work that synchronize with my family's needs. So in the beginning, with me personally, when I thought about work-life integration, I thought, but how on earth will I integrate? It sounds like it's going to be very messy. It sounds like all of my things that I need to do are going to clash. It seems like I'll never have time to just sit down and get some work done. But actually integrating still means that we have strict boundaries. And that's a word that all of the speakers have mentioned. So it means that I'm actually scheduling my work in such a way where I have uninterrupted times to work, but I can do it in a way that synchronizes with my family's natural rhythm and patterns so that I don't constantly feel like I'm missing out on their lives. So that is what success would look like. Some alternative examples. So I want to share with you the 5 keys to success. And these are just some of my practical food for thought ideas. Remember, these are just ideas. Work-life integration is something very personal to every family and household and person. So the first one is the thumb. So if I show you sharp, it means that I support you. Okay, so the first one is support. Studies have shown that single women often offer the strongest critique against flexibility policies in the workplace. Okay, very interesting. What does that mean? It means that a lot of the times we don't have each other's back in the workplace as women. Okay, so and that's an interesting thing. So for us, it's about changing our mindsets and about supporting each other in the workplace. So of course, companies are important, and us in female leadership and us as managers, we need to realize that we need to equip people with the flexibility and the tools they need to have a healthy balance between, or a healthy integration between work and family. So we need to equip people to be successful and to have healthy family lives. There's also a thing called flexibility stigma. I don't know who has experienced that, but flexibility stigma refers to that occurrence when there is a flexible policy in the workplace, like there's a rule that says that you can work from home, for example. But if you choose to do that, there's some sort of underlying stigma where people think that you are lazy, people think that you're not as productive, and people feel that actually you're not an ideal employee, whatever that is. So again, as women in companies, as women in leadership, we need to break that stigma, and we need to focus on what does efficiency really mean? What does productivity really mean? And again, it's about that 80-20 principle. What 20% of work can I put in critical things and things that I can prioritize that will give me 80% results, instead of a busyness culture where I do a lot of things and it's 80% effort, but it only leads to a 20% result. So that 80-20 principle is a good thing to keep in mind to guard against a culture of busyness. The second thing is the index finger. Okay, so like you would tell your kids what to do, here we would prioritize and we would place things in a schedule. So when it comes to scheduling, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule. The key is to schedule your priorities. Finding a space for that in your day that fits with your needs of your family, and that fits with your natural integration that works for you. Okay, so here's something that you can go research. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to leave this to you to research. It's time boxing or time blocking. So this is a way that you can schedule, where you schedule blocks of time during your day. And each day does not have to look the same, but you basically can schedule for yourself a work block where you only focus on uninterrupted work time, and you put that time block in a slot during the day that it fits with your family. Let's take an example. If you have very small children that you have to mind during the day, you can have early before they get up, so that you know that by the time you wake them up, you have breakfast, you've already actually tackled maybe the most important part of your day. So that makes you feel more in control. Okay, that's just one example. Please go research that as a tool. The next tip is the middle finger. So if I show you my middle finger only, which I'm not going to do, I'm politely telling you to go away, okay? So the middle finger represents boundaries. So it's telling people no. Okay, so I want to challenge you. Say no more often. Give yourself space to actually decide and think over the decision before just saying yes. Okay. Boundaries also naturally refer to emotional boundaries, but also physical boundaries. Emotional boundaries is something like, who do I ask for advice? Whose advice, even if they offer it, do I actually listen to and take into account? Okay. If you predetermine your boundaries, it'll be much easier for you to say no, because you know that it's violating a principle that you've already set for yourself. Physical boundaries, of course, like Yumna also mentioned earlier, that it's still important to have that structure for yourself and your kids. It's important to have a physical space where you can dedicate to work. What I want to suggest is have a place where you can work, have a separate space to be creative, and have a separate space to spend with your family. Because being creative, and if your job involves being creative and thinking of ideas, it's very hard for your brain, because your brain has now been programmed to get into work mode when it goes into your home office, and to go into family mode when it steps into your living room or your bedroom. So those things are very important. Another boundary that I'd like to share with you is one that I actually have started using, and that's been quite helpful, is set communication boundaries. Okay, set boundaries of when do I receive communication. So me, I only check my emails twice a day. I know, I dare to say it. You do not have to check your emails every 5 minutes. Okay, again, it's very dependent on your work. But if you are like me, I get distracted very easily. So for me, having standard times that I check my emails and I schedule a work block right after I've checked my email, that's very helpful, because then I know that when I'm in my morning work block, I can only focus on that specific thing. I'm not distracted with things that seem urgent, but that are actually not as urgent as they may appear. So the ring finger, most people wear their wedding band on their ring finger. It's about relationships, right? So here it's important to communicate. Communicate the schedule, communicate the boundaries to the people living with you. It's important that you be on the same page. And an example here is that if you have kids, for example, and you have a boundary in terms of your physical space, let's say your boundary is that when I am in the guest room, which is now my home office, and the door is closed, it means that mom is working for 2 or 3 hours, okay? So you can communicate it to your children, and let's say the boundary is that your kids are not allowed in the room while you're working. Communicate it to them in a positive way. Like, for example, say that if you need me during that time, you can knock on the door and I'll come out to you, okay? So don't just let it be free roam. Everyone can barge in there when they please. Say that I'll come out to you, and when I come back into my office, it's easy for my brain to say, okay, it's work mode again. So the last finger is the little pinky. So it reminds me of that little feeling, that little guilty feeling, that little feeling of inadequacy. Am I a good mom? Am I a good employee? Am I doing this right? All of those little nagging feelings that just come up just when you want to go to bed. So the last finger is let go. I want you to let go of those feelings. And a practical way that Pertunia has also shared with us is to journal, okay? I want to explain my reasoning why I say journaling. A lot of people, when they think of journaling, they think, my dear diary, this has happened today. Actually, journaling is so much more powerful than that. If you journal in a way that is structured, it's such a powerful tool to empty your emotional tank, because what happens is that if we're lying awake at night in the evening, our emotional tank is full to the brink, okay? Now we're going over all of those negative thoughts, because your mind naturally will go over to negative rather than positive. And actually that emotional tank spills over into the next day. So the next day, I'm already starting with the emotional tank that's half full. Where's that day's emotions and fears and just coping? Where's that supposed to go? Because you only have half a tank. So you're already setting yourself up for failure for the next day. So rather than doing that, journal right before you go to bed. And this is a way that I want you to journal is firstly, you're going to write down what happened. Okay. What happened? Secondly, what do I think? Okay. Considering what happened, what are my thoughts about this? Write down everything. Then the next thing is, how do I feel? What emotions am I experiencing? Okay. Now, considering what happened, what emotions I have, what am I feeling, all of that, I might actually feel like what I want to do is climb into bed with a chocolate. Okay. That's why the fourth section in your journal will be, what are my goals? So now we're refocusing. We're saying, okay, considering what happened, what goal relates to what happened? Maybe my goal is to be more healthy in a physical and emotional sense. The last step would then be, what will I do in light of my goal and in light of what happened? Now I realize that in light of my goal, I can't climb into the bed with a chocolate because that's not serving my goals. That's not serving where I want to be and the direction that I want to grow in. So if you do this right before you go to bed, you're already setting yourself up for success because you're choosing to change your mindset. You're choosing healthy behaviors instead of those default behaviors that don't always serve our own purpose and our own goals. So that's a practical way, and that's something that I'd like to challenge you with to start with today. So those were your 5 keys to success: support, scheduling, boundaries, communication, and letting go. And the last thought that I'd like to leave you with is never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. That's what it's all about. That's why we want to integrate work and life. I loved Rene's example that she and her daughter get to work together because that's a fantastic example of work-life integration. And that's, at the end of the day, what makes us feel purposeful and what makes us feel fulfilled. Thank you so much.
Helena, thank you very much. I'm pretty certain that everybody will remember that hand. And even though we don't shake hands any longer, you've given new perspective to it. So thank you very much. We are going to suggest that if you have any questions that are more lengthy in nature, please can you direct it to our team in the office who can then forward it to Helena so that it could be answered. I would like us now to get the 4 speakers to share a take-home message for each one or from each one so that you can take this away and share it with somebody that you care for or maybe somebody that you need to influence. Whereafter we're going to have something that we will introduce to you by way of a pledge. So let's start off with Yumna first. What's your take-home message? Then we'll go to Pertunia, Rene, and finally Helena. Yumna, are you around? If not, we can take whoever has got one ready for us. Nazrin, can you see?
I don't think Yumna's on, Eugene. So
okay, Rene, are you still on?
Yes, Eugene, I am.
Okay, what's your take-home message in 15 seconds?
My take-home message is remember every woman behind the mask, and protection is not only against COVID, the virus, and the scary monster. Protection is taking care of yourself first before we can take care of others.
Thank you very much, Rene. Pertunia, are you there?
Yes, I am. My take-home message is mental well-being is equally as important as your physical well-being, and let's really take care of that and not neglect it, and control what's within our controls.
Thank you very much. Helena, have you got a take-home message there for us?
Yes, I would say my take-home message is to let go of this traditional mindset of trying to separate work and life, rather focus on integrating.
Thank you very much. If Yumna is not present, what I would like to suggest is this is something that we're going to leave you with from MasterDrive. I'm going to ask Nazrin to put up the slide, and This is something that we're initiating right from now. Just go back one slide. There we are. We're going to invite everyone present, and this is the cost of you being with us today, to take a pledge. What that pledge is, and when we go to the next video, I will share that with you and explain the background to that. If you go onto the website, the MasterDrive website, .co.za, you will be able to find this on the home page. Please, will you open up the video and play it for us? If I can just give you the methodology behind that. I was listening to one of the international news channels, and I can't tell you whether it was Al Jazeera, BBC, or CNN, but the lady or the presenter used 3 words, and I thought it made so much sense. And it is hands, face, and space. If we can take that, as we now read the pledge that I'd like to ask you to look at, in mind, it's easy then to remind peers, colleagues, or anybody else if they're not complying. Hands, face, and space. And we know, of course, what they are. So here's the pledge. I just want to move that. I pledge, as a member of the human race, to do my part in fighting this unwanted and uninvited ghoulish companion. I will therefore make my hands do their part in this battle by being fastidious in the application of soap and water, or failing that, hand sanitize as often as needed, and then some more. Ensure that my face, notwithstanding the overwhelming desire to share a smile, remains safely shielded so as to prevent any possible spread or exposure to the vile virus. I will, notwithstanding my desire to be up close to my fellow man, fellow woman, keep a space that respects the social distancing norms. I further pledge that by battling this virus, we shall win the war, and therefore I will advocate the value of this pledge by sharing the slogan, hands, face, and space. Together, we can stop the spread. Please, when you open the website and you click on pledge, it will take you through the video, the pledge there. We're not asking you to register, but what we're asking you to is to share that with as many as possible. And you will notice on the video there, the 4th component. If someone doesn't, then them ask. So please feel free, as Rene indicated, to make this awareness grow to all those who don't know much and don't care to know further about COVID. But together we are in this. So the message that I would like to just leave you with before we hand over the prizes, it was Wolfgang von Goethe, a philosopher 200 years ago. He made the following statement: let everyone sweep in front of his own door and the whole world will be clean. If you and I undertake to keep true to that pledge, we are doing our part to ensure that everybody else around us is safe. Have a look at this slide, and I think this is the stance that MasterDrive has taken. So courtesy of MasterDrive, who are protecting us and our loved ones, we're going to give away some prizes. Remember at the outset, we had a take-a-lot prize worth 500 Rand. The team behind, and I really want to take this opportunity to thank Nishani, Sam, and Nazrin, who have worked hard, plus all the other members who've given them the time in order to do this. The take-a-lot voucher goes to, and I need you to show or tell us if you're still here, Raquel Kruvalt. You won the take-a-lot voucher courtesy of MasterDrive. Raquel, are you with us still?
I am. Thank you so, so much.
Okay, great. And listen, you've got to show me at least 500 people that you've sent that pledge to, all right?
Not a problem.
The other giveaway, remember we spoke at the outset, and thank you very much for those who took note. I'm going to put the book up in front of you. It is by Rene, Sculptured by Grief, and I would like to read the foreword that he wrote, because I think this is particularly poignant in the time that we live. In the dedication page, he says, "This book is dedicated to all those who were there and those who weren't. For me, in my most trying moments, they have all played a significant role in the expansion of my growth and awareness." So the 10 names that were pulled out, I'm going to read them out. So please just acknowledge that you are present, because if you don't claim it, it's going to be given away to somebody else. Jonathan Mpake, are you there?
I'm here, Eugene.
There you get one. Thank you. Hey, there's the good-looking guy I recognize. We've got Vanessa Jackson. Are you there, Vanessa? Okay, Vanessa, you've got the opportunity of coming back to us.
I'm here.
Okay, there we are. Carol Hansen. Are you there, Carol?
I'm here.
Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lolita Slinger.
I'm here.
There we are. Well done. Tia Lindeque.
Hi, I'm here.
Great. Deborah Pretorius.
I'm here, Eugene. Thank you.
Wonderful. Linda McQuitzy.
I'm here, thank you, Eugene.
Great. Julia Bentz.
I'm here, thanks, Eugene.
Well done. Lisa Kerr.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Great. And then Madeleine Holmes. Those are the 10 winners of the book. Please, and what I would encourage you to do, if you are finished reading it, why not share it with somebody else? And Rene, by the way, is the author of the book, Who Moved My Cheese? So the final giveaway, and this requires some thought, folks. MasterDrive and Dr. Nell are sponsoring 3 coaching sessions for somebody that needs it. So what you have to do, it could be for yourself or it could be for someone you know. You need to write a motivation to the team here at MasterDrive. They won't be looking at it, so please don't share anything confidential at that stage. I would then like you, they will then share it with Helena, who will then make the final decision as to who qualifies. So please, we appreciate the fact that we're able to do something, albeit small, and we hope that you will take away something from here. Normally, when I used to do training, I would have the audience or my participants identify 10 people that they could take home a positive message to. So my challenge to you is, in addition to sharing the pledge, take something positive from this so that you can make a difference in their lives. So the penultimate slide I would like to put up for you to view is a message from Mother Teresa. We could almost say it's posthumously. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow has not yet come. We have only today, let us begin. So by way of reminder, please share that pledge with everybody you can, because hopefully it will make a difference. And then the final message by way of a video we would like to share with you. This is, we're living in the technological society, so please watch it and read the message at the end, and we would then like to conclude. So success to all our customers. And folks, if you're not a customer of MasterDrive yet, please let me use this opportunity to invite you to experience what we can do and how we can do it. And we would love to hear from you. That brings to conclusion. So with thanks to all the presenters, we really honestly and truly appreciate every bit of value that you brought to the occasion. And we would like to thank everybody who attended, because without you, this would not be possible. Just keep your ears open. We will be running another one in the next 6 weeks or so. Please, we'd love to have you present again. With that, we bring this to conclusion.